So moving on then. So yesterday we had got as far as creating this old combo drop down thing here to select what type of ingredient we're putting in. Now we need to deal with the name. I don't want to have to type in something like the flavor name and then remember to type in a space, a hyphen, a space, open bracket, and let's say it's flavor. I'll put a A in there. And another one, that's just rubbish. What I want is to be able to just put the flavor name in and then select the rest of this from a drop down list. So let's have a look at some points I have created here. So this is the ingredient name manufacturer selector. So I've got a few points. We're going to move this original text box that's there out of the way for a minute. We'll create a new drop down and we need to create a live list of manufacturers from the query and an option to create a new one. So what I mean is a live list. I want to be able to just, for the tool, to go through the list of ingredients that we've already got, find out what all of the manufacturer tags were on the end, and then offer that as a as an option for new ones. So that differs a little bit from what we did with ingredient types, where we have a separate table and we specify them all in here. I don't want a separate table for manufacturers because manufacturers are much more likely to have new ones, etc, etc, etc. So it'd be just a lot easier, rather than having them in a separate table, is if the Access figures it out itself from the existing list of ingredients. So the next bit that we need to do after that is we will need to update the value when either is changed, because we will be using unbound fields to take in the data, take in the name and that drop down. We then need to stick that all together and include the hyphen and the the brackets and all that kind of stuff, and then have it put into the database. There's a couple of ways we could do it. We could write it into the code so that it stores it in the database, but actually the easier way is just to have a hidden field on the form that is bound still to that ingredient name field in the table, and then just update that every time one of our actual thingies gets changed. So I'm going to go ahead and now make these changes, and we'll have a look once I'm done. Right, so let's see what I've done here. As you can see, we now have two boxes on here instead of the original big old text box thing. So the point is, and let's do a little bit of a demonstration, if I want to create a new flavor, I'll put the flavor name in here, and then I'll just simply select an existing manufacturer. Let's say it's Flavor West from there. It's a PG flavor, everything else can stay the same, so we'll close it. We'll open up the ingredients, we'll go down to the bottom, we can see it has done what we wanted. We've got the new flavour, we've got a hyphen space, blah blah blah, and it's in brackets and everything is good. So let's close that. So let's have a little look at what I did here. So basically the first thing that I did is, you'll see that this is our original text box that's still bound to the ingredient name field from the table. And the reason why I've done that is it's just quicker. It's a lazy way of doing it, basically. If we leave this field on here, what we can do is just simply update it with the contents from these two boxes here, stick it in there, and it's going to get saved in a database. So we just sort of tuck it out of the way in the corner, as small as you like, because you can't see it, and we make it not visible, as you can see here. So that's that bit. Then I just created a normal text box and an unbound combo box, and then for the actual data in that combo box, which is the only sort of tricky bit really, is it picks up its values from a query called auto manufacturers suffixes, and here is that query. And if we have a look at the design of that query, what you'll see is it's a single column and it's made up of a sort of relatively, I wouldn't say complex, but yeah, it's quite long, the expression that's in here. And what it's doing is it's looking up the ingredient name in our ingredients table, and it's looking for, the first thing it does basically is looks for space hyphen space, finds that position, and starting from that point +3, i.e. at the end of that, so it's going to start from the space here, then it's going to count 3 forwards, which will be the beginning of the manufacturer's name. It then extracts out everything between that and the last bracket, and then just removes the last bracket. And yeah, so that's how that works. If we just quickly look at it here, you'll see that it's just extracted out all the manufacturers' names. And because we set it to totals and group by, it's only going to show, you know, one of each, which is exactly what we want. So we'll close that down a minute. No, we won't make changes to that. So that's what's getting stuck into here. Then what we need to do, because these are both unbound at the moment, so they'll take our, you know, take our data entry, but then it'll just sit there in these boxes and do nothing. So what I've done is for each of these, you'll see they have an after update event handler, and both of them have got an after update event handler. So let's have a look at those handlers. And here it is here. So there's ingredient name P1 and ingredient name P2, which is just the name of that. That's ingredient name P1 and that's ingredient name P2. They both have event handlers on them, as you can see on after update, and they both do exactly the same thing, and that is just to call another subroutine. Because basically I want these things to do the same thing. I want these two controls to do the same thing when they're updated. So rather than just repeat the code twice in each one, I'll stick it in one and just, yeah, get them to both use the same subroutine. And that subroutine basically just says if either of them have got something in it, then basically stick it together and put the hyphen and the brackets in and stick it into the ingredient name value text box. And that is there, and that will get saved to the database. And that's exactly what it does. So I think we are done with this form for now. So we can move on to the next thing tomorrow. Watching paint dry would be more interesting.